If there's any one thing that's unique about Nintendo, it's characters. They have a huge catalog of lovable characters that they can retool and remake on new hardware at any given point. Unfortunately, not all of these old characters and games get the same treatment over the years, but when the time is right, it's always great to see an old face return to the spotlight. It's been fantastic seeing untouched franchises like Metroid return in a big way, and it got me thinking about other Nintendo characters and game types that I'd love to see return down the line. I tried to put a focus on games that haven't seen a new release in at least the last 5 years. Here's my personal top 10 Nintendo sequels we need.
Number 10.
Pokémon Stadium. There's a true level of joy that comes from Pokémon Stadium that I just love. It's a ton of things wrapped into one. A dynamic way to see your favorite Pokémon battle, a fun system to try different battle modes and play with Pokémon that you would never be using otherwise, a way to play your portable games on the big screen, but most importantly, mini-games. Stadium 1 and 2 have amazing mini-games that in my opinion serve as a great way to get anyone into the Pokémon universe. It's a sort of common ground in the Pokémon world because it's so simple. Whether you play the video game or the card games or only watch the show, everyone can enjoy these games in one way or another. The last we saw a true sequel to this series was a decade ago with Pokémon Battle Revolution, and I really don't count that. It's a bare-bones title with no mini-games and not a lot to do outside of just battling. I think it's time to open the stadium back up.
Number 9.
Ice Climber. This is by far the oldest game series today, going all the way back to 1985, since Ice Climber has never really seen a sequel of any kind since its Versus arcade release. The original Ice Climber is a fun co-op vertical platformer, and as you jump and smash your way to the peak with Nana and Popo, you try and recover your stolen vegetables. You know what I see when I see these two? Joy-Cons. In the style of titles like Snipper Clips, I feel like this game would be the perfect way to utilize one of the most unique aspects of the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con co-op capability. Plus, the Ice Climbers didn't even get a return for Super Smash Bros. After back-to-back appearances in Melee and Brawl. Nintendo needs to stop giving these two the cold shoulder.
Number 8.
Wario Land. I adore the WarioWare games, but man do I miss the classic Wario Land titles. They were a great mix of collect-a-thon, beat-em-up, and classic platformer. It's the perfect antithesis to the Mario games. Why line up a triple jump when you can just shoulder check everything in sight at light speed? The last time a true Wario Land game was released was almost a decade ago on the Wii with Shake It, which had a gorgeous hand-drawn animation style and in my opinion is one of the most underrated games on the Wii. I want to be this fat cat making fat stacks. I want to break stuff. I just want my favorite Mario anti-hero back in the spotlight like he deserves.
Number 7.
Super Mario Strikers. Soccer, aka football, aka ball kick, is my least favorite major sport. I hate playing it, I hate watching it. I can't even get into FIFA despite the fact that I generally enjoy most sports video games. But throw all that out the window because Super Mario Strikers is one of the best arcade sports games of all time. The Striker series feels like if soccer, Mario Kart, and Smash Bros had a baby. Crazy items everywhere. Over-the-top special moves like Final Smashes. And perhaps my favorite part of the game is that it has this surprisingly gritty art style. Never did I think the simple Mario cast would look so cool? They look like titans, like superheroes, like monsters when they perform their specials, and combined with the game's fast pace, it makes for a game that I keep coming back to years after the game's online play is shut down. Stop giving me those garbage sports collections where everything is just a watered-down minigame. I want my Mario sports games where all the love, care, and design go into one single experience. And for me, Strikers takes the cake.
Number 6.
Super Mario RPG. Speaking of Mario in a different style, the classic Super Mario RPG game at the very end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan was always a world that I wished that we'd get to see again. Square and Nintendo's crazy cooperative project ended up being an amazing labor of love, with great new characters and enemies, a fun battle system, and a great use of the Super Nintendo's pre-rendered graphics capability. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, this game technically has like a million spiritual sequels when you consider both Paper Mario and the Mario & Luigi series. And we've definitely seen Mario make some unlikely turn-based crossovers since. And while all of this is absolutely true, there's just something about Square's original world and characters that I've been fascinated by. It truly felt like another world, the perfect mix of familiar and strange. Give me Mallow, Geno, and Smithy back in an all-new adventure. We saw Geno return as a skin in Super Smash Bros. 4, and that was the first time in a long time we've seen this character officially. And now, I kinda just want him back for real more than ever.
Number 5.
Kid Icarus Uprising. I've talked about my hopes for a sequel on this channel before, but Kid Icarus Uprising is the perfect candidate. This game actually represents the exact kind of sequel that I've been hoping for with the other games on today's video. It released over 20 years after the Game Boy Kid Icarus title, and in general revived the series. This game entirely reimagined Pit, Palutena, Medusa, and more into a game that's a refreshing shoot-'em-up packed full of wit. The characters are just so lovable, they're silly. It's basically an anime. Okay, so I guess it did have that anime carrot thing, you know what I mean. I want to see this cast return for another episode on the Nintendo Switch, where this time I won't have to use a stylus to aim. Sakurai has gone on record saying that he doesn't plan for a sequel to this game, and Project Sora disbanded almost immediately after the game's release. But just because it's incredibly unlikely, doesn't mean that I don't want it. Kinda just makes me want it even harder.
Number 4.
Pokemon Snap. This is like the holy grail of missed Nintendo opportunities. Who knew that taking pictures of Pokemon would capture our hearts for so many years? It's a very short but beautiful little game that makes exploring an environment and discovering every little secret a ton of fun. Pictures and Pokemon have found their way back into the series with that Rotom Dex and Sun and Moon, but it just doesn't come close to the charm and fun of the original Snap game. The brutal thing is that the ideal, perfect format for a game like this, using the second screen Wii U gamepad to take photos like a camera, is no longer a possibility. But I've been thinking about it, and I'm not even sure that matters. The gyroscope aiming still works fantastically on the Switch for titles like Splatoon and Breath of the Wild, and I think it would work just fine here. And unlike Sakurai, Pokemon's Junichi Masuda has often gone on record saying that he would love to see this franchise return. As he says, it's up to Hal, who's a part of Nintendo, to actually develop the game and give us that sequel that we've been dreaming of for 20 years.
Number 3.
Kirby Air Ride. And we're back to Sakurai. What can I say? The dude just makes a ton of really fun games. Kirby Air Ride is a genius game that was panned by critics as a worse Mario Kart, but I feel like history has shown just how fresh and unique this title actually was. Air Ride is like a toy box, and there's just so many different things to play with. It's a racing game, but you can perform every action in the game with just one button. But sometimes it's about battling, and sometimes it's this crazy top-down thing, and sometimes it's exploring through a huge city in search of vehicle power-ups or legendary cars. And sometimes it's filling out this insane achievement grid, which unlocks new content and gives hints on how to unlock adjacent squares. It's the perfect split-screen title, and it never gets old. And speaking of split-screen, I just learned recently that this game supports LAN. I need to get an Air Ride party going sometime. Sakurai clearly loves this game, because we keep seeing concepts from it being applied to other games that he's working on, like the achievement grid in Brawl or Smash Run in Smash Bros. 3DS. I'm happy to see Kirby Air Ride live on in spirit, but someday I hope that we can see the old Warp Star rev up again.
Number 2.
F-Zero. Holy crap, does Nintendo need to give some love to its not Mario Kart racing titles. F-Zero is criminally underused, and it hasn't seen an official game since 2004. Racing at top speeds with dozens of cars at the same time, incredible neon-lit cities, and being able to very quickly strafe with your car horizontally make F-Zero feel like more than just another fast racing game. It's an experience. I grew up loving the classic Speed Racer animated series, and I feel like F-Zero is the closest we've come to bringing that vision into a video game form. I've harped about it before, but I absolutely love the brutal scenario-specific story mode tracks from F-Zero GX the most. Now, Nintendo has at least tried to revive this series in this decade, but it just didn't pan out. I remember a few years back when it was confirmed that a Wii U F-Zero was proposed to Criterion, the studio behind Burnout. The studio was too busy with other games to meet Nintendo's quick turnaround, but man, that would have been amazing. It would still be amazing.
Number 1.
Advance Wars. Man, how time has changed. Advance Wars is my favorite strategy game. I remember when Intelligent Systems had a new installment every year or two. Advance Wars worked as sort of a parallel to Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem was all about customizing your individual units and never letting anybody die. All about crazy critical hits that saved or ruined you in an instant. About individual relationships on the battlefield. But in Advance Wars, your nameless troop and tank style units are expendable. It plays like a turn-based StarCraft, where you build an economy, create an army of units over time, split your troops, make willing sacrifices, and battle in a chess-like scenario. While each army has the same style of units, it's the game's dozens of colorful commanding officers that add a real spice to each battle, creating game-breaking effects that allow you to attack at wider ranges, take extra turns, deal massive amounts of damage, and more. Advance Wars was the perfect portable strategy title, giving us 2 installments on the Game Boy Advance and 2 on the Nintendo DS. It had a ton of maps, challenges, a theme song for every character, a map editor, single cart play, link cable play, online play, everything honestly. Its last installment, Days of Ruin, tried a drastically different tone, going for more subdued but balanced COs and a grittier, darker story that better matched the tone of war. While many feel like Days of Ruins is the black sheep of the family compared to its colorful siblings, I love all 4 Advance Wars games and return to them constantly. Then, all of a sudden, it stopped. After Days of Ruin in 2008, we never saw an Advance Wars game again. Fire Emblem ended up swinging back in a huge way with Awakening, and since then has seen 3 3DS miniseries games, a mobile game, a spin-off Warriors game, a half-dozen Smash Bros. Characters, a Switch announcement. It got it all. I waited the entire 3DS lifespan for a big Advance Wars revival in the same way, but it never came. In an interview with Eurogamer, the producer for Advance Wars says, "Personally, I'd love to do Advance Wars, but since it's harder to create relationships between its characters compared to Fire Emblem, I don't have a clear idea of what kind of setting it could have." Wait, what? Relationships between its characters? It's a game about war. Isn't the relationship between different nations? Doesn't seem very hard. Wait, is this just because Fire Emblem makes it really easy to sell your waifus and husbandos? Okay, if waifus are what I need to get my beautiful Advance Wars back, so be it. I mean, it's not like it would be anything new. The world already has battleship waifus, tank waifus, and jet plane waifus. Mario plus Rabbids and Disgaea 5 have proven that great strategy titles play amazingly on the go with the Switch. I'm just hoping that someday the king of portable strategy makes its dramatic comeback. Some of these picks are a long shot, but you never know how the Nintendo IP tide will turn. Sometimes an old franchise comes back and it's great, sometimes things don't live up to our expectations. But it's always fun remembering some of my favorite unique Nintendo experiences and hoping that we'll get a revival of what made these games great someday in the future. Thanks as always for watching my content. I really appreciate your guys' support, and I'll see you guys next time with more Nintendo content.